Great. And I will be sharing my screen so that we start our third session. Guys, it's always going super fast, this 1 month journey, but I feel now it's going even faster. I mean, we are already in third session, already past the half of the journey. So just is this one next week, and then we don't see each other again. So let's take the most out of these 2 sessions. I will not repeat all the messages, just the one about closing the other windows on your computer, because I know how hard it is for our brain. So try to help yourself a little bit and close all the other notifications. Tim is back. You know Tim already from the first session. Last time you've been knowing Carol. Next week you will be knowing Viviane. So we are inviting, like here, different facilitators for you to listen to different voices also, not just mine. So what is the objectives we have for these sessions together? We'll start talking about habits, how they are formed, how you can influence behavior of these habit loops. This is the first part of the session. Then we'll connect on a part on nudging, which is probably the thing I most love about behavioral design is nudging. So Tim will be explaining what is nudging. It will give a lot of examples to you. It will give some very structured framework to be used. And then you will make an activity where you will be looking at habits and this HIST framework together so that you can think about interventions. Okay. We'll do also a last part on peak moments. Where we have also a very nice framework called EPIC, and then you will be applying in a very short sprint before, leaving the session with all of that in your head, because will be a lot of things today, and so that you can digest this in the next days and see how you can apply it in your personal life or in your professional life. So remind, like, we will start with habits, talk about nudges, and of course, a lot of applying. For the check-in today, we'll talk about habits. Good introduction to the topic. So a habit is a regular behavior or action that is performed automatically. Okay, so what is one small and maybe slightly silly habit you have that you'd love to redesign or upgrade? So open your mic or write in the chat. What is one small habit you have and you would like to redesign? And Juliana, don't worry. When we do the activity, I will put you into a group where there are more people so that you can participate in the chat or directly in the Miro, but not needing to open your mic. Okay, don't worry.
I think one habit I have is that I snooze way too much in the morning. Like I press the snooze button like 5 or 6 times and not waking up or leaving my bed. So yeah, maybe that's one thing I need to redesign or upgrade actually.
That's very funny, Tobias, because my kid told me 2 days ago about an app where when your alarm is getting on, you need to go and scan a QR code like of your cleaning paste, for your teeth. So you have to get up and go and scan, and if you don't scan the barcode, the alarm is not stopping. And I said, "Oh my God, this is very extreme." But perhaps
But
for you,
it's
it would be
smart.
a way to
It's smart
redesign.
though.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. He told me this 2 days ago. Makes total sense. Stephanie said having more mental space to think. Helena also is with the snoozing, the team of the snoozing. Oh, and yeah, Laura can share a podcast with you. Cool. Rebecca said, I would like to redesign my habit on open Instagram as soon as I'm bored. Vasilina, they need to have a distraction to be able to focus on something. Team, complaining about the music chosen by Hyper Island facilitators in Zoom. Uli, want to pick my smartphone not earlier than 8 a.m. Yeah. When Google Phones first came out, the alarm had a function where you could only turn off the alarm by doing math problems. Oh my God, this is not for me. Jonas is saying screen time too.
I have another one, eating too much when I'm stressed.
Eating too much when you're stressed, yeah. What else, guys? Vino, what's yours?
Probably snacking.
Snacking. Who's missing? Stress eating also, I mean.
Metacognition.
What did you say, Light?
Metacognition. Just thinking about thinking all the time.
Yeah. Laura said, I love reading, but I'm doing it sporadically. Would love to do it more regularly, like 1 hour before going to bed every evening. Yeah, so it's creating a new habit. Great. Thank you guys for sharing. So we have a little bit of everything, right? So let's talk about habit loops. Kristen Berman, she's behavioral scientist. She said behavioral change is hard. It's hard to start and it's hard to sustain. And I think it makes like a very relevant introduction to the topic of habits, because sustaining is hard. Sometimes we start something new a little bit and then it lasts some days and then we just lose it. Yeah. So how do we, build sustainable habits? Last week, I've presented you the framework of the BCOM. You remember? Like behavior is influenced by the C was capability, the O was for opportunity, and the M was for motivation. I wanted to bring you here another framework, but I have to make a disclaimer that it seems to me a little bit similar to the COMBI. It's just with other letters. Scientists always love to create frameworks with letters and acronyms. So this BMAT from BG Fogg is behavior is influenced by M for motivation, which is pretty much the same than in the COMBI. The A of ability, I think it's pretty similar to the capability we were talking about last week, right? And then the T for trigger, it could be a parallel with the opportunity we were discussing, right? But what I find interesting in this model is that BG Fogg is representing it visually. And I think it's an interesting representation because it gets us out of this like black and white representation. It's not so easy to influence a behavior. And is putting here a curve of the activation threshold. What does it mean? If the ability is that, okay, the thing is super easy to do, you don't need such a strong motivation. Your motivation can be low, but the thing is so easy to do, then that's okay. So the activation threshold here is kind of low. On the contrary, if the thing is very hard to do, then you need a very high motivation. Okay, so through this curve is showing that the two things, they are connecting with each other. It's not just two separate parameters. And he talks about triggers. And he said when you are above this activation threshold, the triggers are succeeding. If you are below the threshold, the triggers will fail. Okay, so for example, if it's super easy to do, perhaps the triggers, you just see them as annoying or distracting. If it's super hard to do and you need a lot of motivation, perhaps the fact that you are not able to do that thing, it looks to you frustrating to get these triggers. Okay, so I give you an example. Okay, if your doctor is telling you, oh, you need to walk 30 minutes a day. Okay, for someone who lives in a nice suburb, works 6 or 7 hours a day, perhaps this trigger is something that will resonate because the context also makes that working 30 minutes a day would be easy. If the same doctor is telling this, oh, you have to work 30 minutes a day to someone who, works 10 hours a day, lives in a suburb where it's not very safe to walk, before, after, in the evening, then perhaps this trigger will not succeed. Okay, so I think interesting this curve because it brings a little bit more complexity to how we analyze ability, motivation, and this activation threshold in between. Okay, so BG Fog is the first one. I will talk to you about three guys, okay, three different guys, which can help us analyze habits. So the first one is BG Fog with this BMAT context. And he's saying, if you don't focus your motivation on behavioral X, no, don't do that. What you should focus on is making this behavior easier to do. Because again, if I come back here, if it's easy to do, then the activation threshold is easier to achieve. So that's where you should focus on. Try to turn this easier to do. The second person who is talking about habits is the very Charles Duhigg, okay? And he's saying that you can really structure the habit loop in three different steps: the trigger, the routine, and the reward. So the trigger is like the reminder, that the signal, yeah, okay, you have to do that. The routine is just having this habit itself. It can be a good habit, it can be a bad one. And then you have the reward, which is, a positive feedback in your brain, which is telling you that, you are right to do that. And we've discussed this already now. 40% of the time, we are on autopilot because our brains want to save energy. So as we are on autopilot most of the time, it means that most of these habits, we don't even perceive them anymore, They are part of who we are. And that's also why changing a habit is super tough. He says now, habits are powerful but delicate. They can emerge outside of our awareness or be deliberately designed, and they often occur without our permission. They shape our lives far more than we realize. Okay? Recommend you this book from Duhigg, really good, really easy to read, and really actionable. Once you've read that book, you can really have concrete actions on how to design your own habits and the ones of other people, of course. So if you look at it, you make an activity, this brings pleasure, and then automatically you will repeat this activity because your brain likes pleasure, right? This is what brings you to build a habit. And again, we can say habit or addiction, because when it's a negative one, it can be addiction, like smoking, like drugs, whatever. Yeah. And when you have that, and this is building step by step in your brain along days, weeks, months, years, it becomes a routine and you don't even perceive it anymore. Okay? You don't think about it anymore. So the third guy who talks about habits, and this is the one you will take also to structure the different steps and make an activity afterwards, is James Clear. He wrote this book, Atomic Habits, and he talks exactly about this thing, about dopamine. Your brain loves dopamine, and we know that. But what's interesting in his explanation is that dopamine is not just a reward hormone. So it's not just, you have the trigger, you have the habit, the routine, and then you have the reward, and it's the dopamine, and that's okay, and that's why you fall into it. No. He said it's an anticipation hormone. What does it mean? Is that you get it even before doing this action. Okay, and takes the example of the gambling addicts. They have the dopamine spike, not after they win, but in the moments before. Okay, so this dopamine stuff in our brain is very super important in the way we understand habits and in the way we design better for good habits or destroying bad habits. So let's go step by step. And it's a little bit similar to the Duhigg, like trigger, routine, and then reward. But there is one more step. So cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's go it step by step. The cue. The cue is the trigger, is the same thing, okay? Is the thing, the information that goes to your brain and will make that you are initiating a behavior. Okay, so it's a bit of information. Can be internal, can be external. Okay, but your brain is continually searching for clues, searching for cues. Okay. So here, for example, when you see the notification on WhatsApp, this is a cue. This is an external cue designed by WhatsApp company, Meta, Facebook, whatever, to give you dopamine and the temptation to open and see the messages. Okay. We see like here, missed hits, or when you are going not far from a Starbucks. You are near a Starbucks, Oxford now, 50% off. The cue comes at the right moment when you are passing by the Starbucks. Okay, so these cues, it can be location. When you are in a specific location, this makes a trigger in your brain. It can be a time of the day. It can be an emotional state, which is really internal, right? It can be other people being the cue for you. Okay, so it can be very different things. But that's the first step of an habit. Then you have the craving. The craving is the desire, the motivation. Okay, you want the change of state it provides, this habit, this action. And that's why you're craving. This is the dopamine, even before making the action. And it's very difficult to resist. The third step is the response. Okay, the action, the routine. You are performing an action or you are performing a thought. This action really depends on how much you are motivated and depends also on the friction. Okay, the lower the friction, the easier the action. The higher the friction, the more difficult it would be. And then finally, you get the reward. The reward is the ultimate goal. It's, when you are in the step of the craving, this is the brain thinking, oh, I will get this reward. And that's why I want to make this action. I will take examples because with examples, it's much easier. Okay. How to create a good habit? If we follow these 4 steps, you have the cue. If you want to create a good habit, you have to make the cue more obvious. So if we take the example of running, okay, you want to build a running habit that you run every day, etc. Make it obvious. What is the cue you can imagine? You can put your workout clothes next to your bed so that when you get up, it's the first thing you see. It's obvious. The cue is obvious. The trigger is obvious. Second step, the craving. You have to make this habit attractive. You have to make running attractive. How do you do that? You can have new and attractive clothes. You can buy yourself a smartwatch, smartwatch, because it's helped you to see your performance, but it's also you can post afterwards, your achievement on Strava or whatever. So you are using also, the social networks we are talking about in the last session. So you make this attractive. Third step, the response. The habit itself, the action, you have to make it easy. Just like BG Fogg was saying, right? You have to make it easy because you lower this, this curve. You can set small goals to start. Okay, I will run 15 minutes, not more than that, 15 minutes, that's okay. And once you are starting and once you are running, then that's okay. You are already doing it, so perhaps you extend it to 30 minutes. But the fact that you are making it easy, little chunks in the beginning, it's making the barrier lower. And then the 4 steps, reward. You have to make it satisfactory. When you are running, most of people get endorphins in their brain. So they get satisfied, they get proud of what they've done, of what they've achieved. Okay, so these reward, and also like posting to friends on social media, it can be also reward. Okay, so these are the 4 steps of habits and how you can really work on each of them to make a good habit. Now, how to break a bad habit? Because this is also a big challenge. Let's take smoking as an example. It can be smoking, it can be drinking, it can be other stuff. So the cue, you have to turn the cue, the trigger, invisible. Don't buy the cigarettes. Put them away. I mean, when I'm buying on the weekend for the food in my fridge, if I don't buy chocolates, if I don't buy like nasty stuff, I'm just simply not eating them because they are not there. They are not available for me. They are invisible. So this is helping. Second step, the craving. You have to turn this habit not attractive so that you don't crave it. So you can add reminders of how this is not a real relief, but instead of an escape. Yeah, because smoking, many people say, "Oh, I have the pleasure," But in general, it's when people are stressed, So it's an escape, or they are just bored, and instead of looking Instagram, they are smoking a cigarette. Okay, so you have to turn it like mentally in your brain. You have to turn this not attractive. We've seen also in many countries, they were putting like very nasty pictures on the cigarettes packets, right? With this lung cancer, this kind of stuff. This is a way, like as a government action, to turn the craving less attractive, because when you take the cigarettes, you see the picture. If it's working or not, I've not gone deeper on that, but that's a way of turning it unattractive. Response. You have to turn the habit difficult. You have to make the friction higher. Yeah. So again, here after the meal, we know it's the moment where I'm craving it so much, with my coffee. So perhaps I need to have the tea at reach, and the cigarettes will be away. I have to make it more difficult. We've seen also in companies, people could not smoke. I mean, when I was young, people were smoking inside the offices, right? Today, you have to go out, to go in the street. It's cold. You have to put your coat. Yeah, it's like you are on the. It's not that nice, right? So also, organization have turned it more difficult to have the habit. And then the reward, you have to turn it unsatisfactory. You can set goals. You can give yourself small gifts when reaching these goals, like buying you something else, kind of a reward for the efforts you are doing. Okay, so these were two different examples of building a good habit, breaking a bad habit. And just want to finish here before giving to Tim for nudges. It's like James Clear, but also B.G. Fogg, both of them talk about reducing the things to the tiniest item possible. They say it's the big secret for the brain. Okay, so if you want to build a new habit, just 2 minutes of action. You have to turn it so small that it's almost impossible to avoid. Because once you've started, then the momentum carries you forward. It's just like, oh, I start to run for 15 minutes, and then finally, I keep running 1 hour. Okay? So it's really, the secret is really like starting small. And B.G. Fogg say the same. The essence of micro habits is this: adopt the behavior you want, shrink it down, find how it fits naturally into your life. Kind of, for example, I want to build a habit of reading just 2 pages. I know every morning I will have my coffee. Okay, let's say I will be reading while I'm having my coffee. Because if you build it with another habit you have already, it's easier. Because you have this cue is coming, every day. So how do you fit it naturally into your life? Attaching it to another habit you have. And nurture it so it can grow. If you want to create long-term change, it's better to start small. Make sense? Hopefully you are already having some ideas that things you will be doing or changing in the next days. Because I've seen now in the challenges you've posted in the week 1 and 2, many of you have chosen like very individual habits you wanted to build or you wanted to change. So hopefully also this content will bring you some inspiration to work further on this endeavor. Team Lucas, I leave it with you. Let's go with nudges. And then after that, we go with a good, nice activity where you will work on that together.
I'm still trying to process some of these things, Sabrina, that you were just talking through so I can start to make some changes myself. Just want to make a quick, before I start sharing my screen here, a couple of quick points, because there was a question about are some people more susceptible to habit forming? I remember when I was reading the Charles Duhigg book and some other stuff I've read subsequently, I think from what I've seen from the sort of the research is it tends to be almost two factors there. One of it is almost, yes, neurological sensitivity is a huge factor, and there are things like stress, which can be a cognitive load can also be a part of that. So absolutely. And then the other factor I've seen, which tends to be quite big in defining people's levels of susceptibility to habit, is almost about self-consciousness. People's ability to understand and see the cues, those environmental cues around them, to understand. And part of that I've also seen is belief. Your level of belief that you can actually change a habit is a really interesting factor. And that's why I like the thing about the start small. But it's almost, it's really hard to change a habit if you don't believe you can change a habit. And the last thing I was going to say on that was I find the habit thing really interesting because it's almost like when we talk about biases, in a way, there's a similarity. You don't have habits because you're bad. You have habits because they are what that really old part of your brain at the very bottom of your brain had to do to survive for thousands and thousands of years. And it kind of allowed your brain to go on to autopilot to save energy. That's why, I guess, sorry, this is my little anthropology part on it, but it's like we had to do it as humans. Having habits was actually good to a certain extent. It allowed us to evolve. It allowed our brains to evolve. But obviously now we're these real sophisticated humans, as we showed in week 1 in the elevator. We're so sophisticated that we can have that level of consciousness now to think around how we want to change our behaviors. Let me dive into this because I think what I wanted to talk about was nudging, and I'm guessing some of you will be a little bit more aware of the whole sort of nudge theory. I don't know if you've read the nudge book. To me, it links into what you were talking about, Sabrina, about the third block, about the response, about the environment. How can you shape the environment, design the environment to nudge yourself, and maybe other people are trying to design the environment to nudge you into different kind of behavior. I'm going to show this picture and then I'm going to ask if one of the males in the group would like to explain to the females in the group what this is, in case any of the females in the group.
As a female, I can explain it. Why be sexist with it?
No, I'm trying not to be sexist. I'm just kind of saying
I'm
that
kidding.
from my perspective, I would really hope that no women have ever been forced to go into men's toilets.
No, I mean, I know exactly what the example is.
Yeah,
That's why.
Yeah,
And
I'm going to hope
accidentally.
I'm just hoping from that
I'm kidding.
no
Don't
woman.
worry, I'm kidding.
No, I know. But I really do hope that no woman is ever forced to go into a men's toilet because it's not the nicest of places, especially at a football stadium. That's where it gets even worse. Or
Bars,
or
I
a
would
concert.
say pubs and bars are far worse.
Pubs and
but
bars, yeah. So, does anyone know the story from this picture that I'm showing here? Do you know where this comes from? You're nodding. Do you know where this comes from?
The Schiphol Airport P control fly, isn't it?
So it is, and it's so interesting because it's a Dutch phenomenon. The Dutch love this. It actually started in a bar in Amsterdam. A bar owner discovered how much he was paying extra to clean the men's toilets rather than the women's toilets because men, when they'd had a little bit of drink, I'm trying to think, how do I say this without this getting really horrible? Their target practice, or their aim was not very good. Let's just say that when they were urinating. And so what he decided to do was to do a little experiment. He decided he was going to paint a little fly onto the bottom of the toilet there. This is one of the words I've lost in English. I know it in Portuguese now. I guess we would call it like the basin or the vase there that you urinate into. I'll try and keep it really scientific. You urinate into the vase. And over a period of time, he was then able to track how easier it was to clean the toilets because men subconsciously, obviously, after a few drinks, really wanted to hit that fly with their urine. And it kind of became famous and people started to get to know about it. And I think it's a really fun example of just this whole thing about nudging. You can change an environment to try and change people's behavior. And what I love about that example is we used it in the course about 2 or 3 years ago, myself and Sabrina, and then a participant, I can't remember if the participant was Indian, but I remember she said to us, "Oh, I've got this great example from India where they had a big problem with people urinating on the street. And so they decided to change the tiles to put gods and goddesses. And of course, nobody would urinate on the gods and goddesses." I just thought this is so amazing. We have no problem urinating on flies, but we don't want to urinate on our goddesses. And that says something else about humans that I'm not sure. You can decode that one later. But in its most sort of pure form, its nudging is just this whole concept of choice architecture. Every day around you, when you're making all those decisions and you're mostly in autopilot, as we discussed, you are probably in some way making a decision as a human being where somebody else is in some way trying to influence those decisions that you make. I always come back to using this image here. You know, the architects in the design firm for the park spent thousands and thousands of dollars to create this beautiful park environment. And then the good old lovely human being comes along and decides to create what we call a desire path. And that's the human desire. That's just where we would go naturally. I think they're called cow lines and they have all these other names for them. But it is about we as humans still have a level of control over our decisions, but we're playing this constant game all the time. And you do it yourselves, consciously or subconsciously. Think about your relationship with your friends, your partners. You know, you don't just let it get to the weekend and then, you know, they're going to tell you what you're going to do. No, through the week, you're kind of designing the choices that you want your husband or wife or your kids to make. You know, it's I can look at it at that very top level. We're constantly making decisions around choices and how we want people to make choices that we want them to. But where the nudge theory to me is crucial to understand, and I'll read this out because I think it helps us to think about it, 2 or 3 key things here. It comes from behavioral science, political theory, behavioral economics. It proposes positive reinforcement through indirect suggestions as ways to influence the behavior and decision-making of groups and individuals. The key word there for me is indirect. This is not about having complete control and taking away people's choice. This is about trying to influence people's choice. And I think obviously it's a very fine line between when are you just influencing or when are you taking away the ability for people to make decisions. And that to me is very different from nudging. Nudging is where you want people to still have that ability to choose. And nudging traditionally, and this comes back to the roots of nudging. And if you remember in the first session, I spoke about the hooligans and that project that I worked on sort of 25 years ago. And then some of those people from the project moved into the British government. It started as government initiatives to try and change people's behaviors around health, largely. And then this whole behavioral insights team was created. They've subsequently published books. They've published a lot of research, a lot of reports. And I think there's really interesting, rich material that you can go and look at from the British government. The New Zealand government then started to invest in it. Not most, but a lot of governments around the world now invest heavily in these units. And as I said, it tends to be around bigger societal level change. And that's where one of the initial projects from the UK government was they realized that in the UK economy, a huge amount of money was lost and wasted through heat dispersal from houses because people were not trying to protect the heat within their homes. So a lot of heat was lost. And there were obviously a range of different actions that you could take to do that. They gave incentives. They were giving people monetary incentives to do the insulation of, you know, English houses have that part of the roof, the loft. And that was where you could actually, because obviously the heat rises, that's where the heat is being lost there. What they did was they realized the problem wasn't about giving people financial incentives to buy the material cheaper. It was that, if you imagine, and I did this myself for many years, that's the part of the house where you just put all the crap, all the stuff you were too lazy to throw away, all your kids' toys, the clothes, all the things you accumulated over years, you just put it upstairs into the loft. And for most people, the thought of having to do the work of sorting out and bringing down all that stuff to then insulate the loft was too much. So actually, they partnered with companies that said, we will go there and help you to tidy up and clear out that part of your house, and then you can put down the insulation. And they saw how it worked. So again, it's understanding decisions, understanding habits, and then applying it. And like I said, initially at that very social level. Have any of you seen this film, documentary style film that was on HBO about Brexit? Because I mentioned on session 1, when we start to enter this world of nudging, we can very much go into the world of ethics and politics. And I always forget, what's the name of this actor? Dominic Cumberbatch.
Benedict.
I think it is. Benedict.
Dominic.
Thank you, Amy.
Dominic,
Benedict.
okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch. And the reason I say Dominic is because he was playing the role of Dominic Cummings,
Yeah.
who is the real life person behind Brexit. He was not a politician, but he was someone who worked a lot with behavioral economy and behavioral economics. And he set up a whole plan to basically nudge people online to support Brexit. I won't go more into it. There is, Sabrina, have you spoken about Nudge Stop, the event, before now? So
No,
every
I don't know.
year, every year Ogilvy, the agency, they have an event in London called Nudge Stop. And I super recommend, have a look on the website. Each year they have new cases, brands go along and talk about it. And there is, I think from not too many years ago, there is a video of Dominic Cummings talking about how he basically manipulated the British public to vote for Brexit. What a lovely man he is. I won't even go into what he did during COVID then to break the rules of COVID. But anyway, have a look at the video. But again, it's just, we'll talk a little bit about this next week as well, right, Sabrina? We're going to go a little bit more into some of those ethical questions around when are we doing something that is good and when are we actually starting to manipulate people in this world of nudging. So I want to really talk you through the British government created this framework that they still use, I still see it used a lot by practitioners in the field. And so I think it's good to present it to you. You will do an activity. Okay, so I'm going to try and talk through these 4 elements quite quickly, because then you're going to try and think around how could I put this into practice. But basically, when we think about building those behavioral nudges, when we understand those different biases and different behaviors that we're trying to change, when you build a nudge, when you design a nudge to test, there's 4 elements that you can use in your favor. Firstly, make it easy. Secondly, make it timely. Thirdly, make it social. And 4th, make it attractive. And I'm sorry, I've read it the wrong way around. I've just turned it from east into etza, but go the other way around. Sorry, easy, attractive, social, timely. And I'll go through it now in that order. Easy. Everything we've told you over these 3 weeks is our brain does not want to do the work. Our brain wants the shortcuts. Your brain will naturally do the shortcuts. You're fighting against it. So if you're trying to nudge the brain, make sure the actions you're asking people to do is simplifying steps as much as possible. That is why anything you sign up for these days, you will see there is usually a default box. So you have to then make the really hard work to click off the default and decide you want to pay $2 less a month for that service. it is also, and again, when it comes back to the bigger public good, this is why it started. A lot of the experiments in this came from the health service, where the British government realized that historically you had to opt in to donating your organs when you died. And when they did research, they realized most people had no problem with donating their organs, but they were just too lazy to go and find the form and tick it. So what about if we make the default that you will automatically donate your organs? And if you decide you don't want to donate, now you need to go and make the effort and say, I don't want to donate. Okay. In doing it, they've saved thousands of lives. There's a lot of research on it. We could again talk about the ethics of it, but they've fundamentally seen that that is something simple you can do to make the decision easy. Quick video also, not quite as, it's health related, but not quite as big as saving thousands of lives, although maybe in the long term, it could help save thousands of lives. Make sense? If you want your kids to eat fruit, just chop it in small pieces. That's kind of, again, it goes back to what Sabrina said, start small. You'll see all these things around you. And again, you know, just keep sharing them as and when you see them and find them. But the second one here is make it attractive. Make it fun. Grab people's attention. If you can do anything that actually, I don't know if I showed the picture before, but I've seen the one, I know in Geneva and Zurich, I've seen it in Switzerland, where you can decide where you want, when you put out your cigarette, where do you want to make the vote for, then there's all different, what's your favorite cheese or all these different things, but it just looks great. Even I'm not encouraging anyone to smoke, but it's just, even for that, it's like, just how can you make these things stand out? Again, in that world of the attention economy where everything is competing for you, anything that is going to allow your brain to realize that you're even trying to help people to do specific behavior, it's good. This is one of my favorites. I'm trying to think, do we remember where we got this one from, Sabrina, what the brand was? I think it was a brand that did it, but it was just to get that message out about plastic bags and reducing plastic bags so that people would want to have an attractive one to take out. And again, I think part of this is, you know, sparking conversation, getting interest, getting people talking. If it's something that will get people to actually have that conversation, it goes back to what I spoke about, consciousness and raising people's awareness. The third one we've spoken a lot about, we spoke a lot about it in the first session, that very first block we were talking around, you know, we are social animals, we're social beings, we think we're individuals, but as soon as we find out that people like us have changed their behavior, we feel like we should change our behavior as well. So you will see those around you all the time. Yeah, the one that was on here that I'm trying to think, The blue image here was an app called Lose It that I downloaded, and I just couldn't believe, like, every single day I was getting one of these messages with a little bit of data telling me, as it says here, people with notifications turned on report losing 64% more weight. So telling people what other people are doing is a way of helping to nudge those behaviors, that kind of sense of, if you see other people are committed to this and you see that other people are making a change, it's more likely you'll make a change. And you'll see it around you classically, that whole thing, things like Airbnb, 500 people are looking at this property right now. Oh my gosh. So I need to click now and reserve it. Amazon use a lot of this as well. But again, just pay a little bit of attention next few days and you'll start to see a lot more of these around you. Wristband recycling leaderboard. Yeah, so this, again, we are competitive as humans. So again, this kind of thing, at the Coldplay concert. Did you go to the Coldplay concert, Sabrina? No, let's not go there with musical taste. But yeah, I think, again, start to see these things around us. You'll start to see them. And I'm hoping this session today will raise your consciousness a little bit around the way that brands are trying to do this all the time. Gamification is also, a big part of that. If we're thinking about making things social, thinking about habits, if you can combine the attractive and the social, that's why, kids, and not just kids, game a lot. It is built into the gaming logic that you are in an attractive environment. Most of those big online mass games are social. And so you're sort of getting the positive reinforcement and the rewards. There's constant goal setting. You can track your progress. I mean, the whole basis of most games is that if you survive, you learn to die so that you can then survive next time. So then you keep progressing through the game. And I think that maybe that's something for us to learn when we look at trying to build positive habits is, if you fail, that's not the end of the game. It's like, okay, why did I fail? It's kind of helping yourself to then keep going in that gamification mode. What do I need to adjust next time? How do I learn? And the last one, which is super important, is the thing about timely. You need to really influence the decision at the time that the decision is being made. Prompt people when they're most receptive. I used to have a thing. Is anyone from London here with us? Or anyone who's lived in London? I used to have a thing from the water company in London that you used to put in your shower, and then you would turn it around and it would show you, and it ran for about 2 minutes, like a sand timer, to show you 2 minutes. And it said, this is a good amount of time that you should use to take a shower. It would never work in Brazil. Sorry, we've got my Brazilian friends here. In Brazil, they would have to be like 20 minutes. But for English people, 2 minutes would be okay. But it's in the shower. It's there looking at you at the time. And again, that's where a lot of those digital nudges around notifications that reflect where you are in person obviously work best. Super quick summary, because we want you to jump into the activity. So just make it easy. Yeah, let people almost go with the flow, help them to not think. And we've put in here, and obviously you can dive into this in more detail afterwards, but there are some of the specific biases there that this responds to. So that kind of status quo bias, cognitive overload, that's why the easy one is important. Make it attractive. We're very visual animals, or sensory animals. So really kind of think about how you build into people's senses. Think about value, and just try and make people feel there's a reward there for them. Making it social, we spoke about that all the time. We are much more influenced by the people around us than we would like to admit. So when we see the people around us are changing, we're more likely to change ourselves. And that last one, as I just said, do it at the right time. Do it when people, again, don't have to think about it for a couple of days and then change the behavior. It's almost get them at the point when you can actually have most impact in that immediate sense. Sabrina, we're going to get everyone to go and build a nudge, aren't we?
I guess so. So let me share the screen here for the activity. So the objective of the activity is kind of combining what we've been talking about habits and the framework that Tim was bringing now about the HEAST, okay? Building nudges. So each group will get a real world habit, okay? So you will discover in which group number you are, and then you will know where in the miro you should go and discover what is the habit that has been allocated to you. You will first map the habit loop and then try to redesign it. And the way you brainstorm interventions would be to disrupt, to redesign these negative habits using the EAST framework. Okay, you will have 15 minutes for that. And this is how it looks on the Miro. So group one, for example, email reflex, habit, checking email first thing in the morning, even before getting out of bed. Okay, this is a bad habit. We want to change it. Okay, what is the diagnosis? So you analyze what is the cue, what initiates the behavior, what is the craving, what is the motivation, the desire that pushed the person to act, what is the person, what is the habit, the action itself, okay, and what is the reward, the payoff, the gratification. And then you make some ideas of interventions, thinking about making it easy, attractive, all the things we've been talking about. You have some stack of post-its in the middle. You can drag and drop them wherever you want. You will have 4 to 5 people in the group. You can divide yourself the job within these 15 minutes or discuss all together. I mean, and again, as I was saying last week, it's like the framework itself is just to help you to have a good conversation. I mean, if you put the post-it on one column or the next, it's not really important. What is important is you having a good discussion and some insights of what could be done as interventions. Okay? I've put in the chat the link of the Miro, so you can enter it. And then I will be dividing you for 15 minutes into 4 different groups. Any questions? Any doubt?
I have a question, but it's too early for this. But I'm gonna still ask it, please, if it's okay.
Go.
I was thinking about this yesterday because there are so many different models, and today we also got the fog. Sorry, the one that's similar to BCom that you were talking
Yeah, the
about.
BMAT from BG
Oh,
Fog.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So is it possible for us to also hear from you how, as practitioners, you actually make sense of all the different models, and when you employ them, how, when, which do you switch, etc., etc.? That'd be very helpful.
Yes. We'll bring that in the next module because it's the final one. Okay. So the
Perfect.
idea is that we'll be discussing about ethics, a little bit about AI, and also trying to give you, okay, we've seen a lot of different tools and frameworks along the 4 weeks. How do you handle a project? Like you want to change behaviors. Where did you start? What do you use in which situation? We'll bring you that next week. Don't worry,
Thank
Annie.
you.
We'll come.
Thank you.
No problem. So let's go. 15 minutes, 4 groups, and then we talk again after that. So let me open the rooms.
I see the smoke off of people's fingers because you were doing a lot of work there.
Everybody's coming back. Good. I think no one. Oh, yeah. Still 1 or 2. Just ensuring we have not lost anyone in the Zoomiverse. So want to listen to you guys. I've seen like a lot of things appearing. Everybody's working in parallel. What are your insights you got by doing this activity together around habits and the HEAST framework? Who wants to start?
I can maybe start because it got quite funny in our group then, because we had the snacking approach, and in the end we were talking about snacking at the office for like birthday parties and when you're bored and stuff like that. And in the end, I think we ended up building like the worst company ever, stopping the snacking by putting like the vending machines in the toilets and stuff like that. So you have like a negative thought about getting the snack because it's like not a hygienic place. But it was quite funny, like coming from a small approach to the bigger nudges, maybe.
Thank you, Tobias. Who's next?
And I would continue. I was in the first group. We had this email reflex, checking email first things in the morning, even before getting out of bed. What we noticed that it is, while it was quite easy to find um, interventions that make it easy or make it hard to not pick up the phone or place the phone outside your bedroom or something like that, or delete the app. It was quite hard to find social interventions. Um, I don't think we really got one. Yeah, that was one
Yeah.
thing that we found
And,
out. Yeah,
and this is what we were discussing last week, huh? When you are using frameworks for like one or another behavior, I mean, not systematically, you will find 100% of the framework which is applying to this specific behavior. So the point is like seeing where probably in the cues you find a lot of opportunities, but not perhaps so much on the other elements. So, and that's why the more you apply frameworks to a whole range of different behaviors, the more you train also your muscle of identifying, okay, in that case, I think the easy and the attractive will be something that works better. In that way, perhaps the social will be more, will be stronger. So it's also something like the more you apply, the more you train your brain for that, right?
and then you would apply different models to one problem and see what works best, or
Yeah, this is what I was telling before. It's like next week I will show you a little bit in which case you can use which framework. But the
yeah.
idea is really that you have a full toolbox of different frameworks, and then you can define also depending on the behavior you are studying, what make more sense in one case or another. There is no absolute rule, just like always. But I think it's interesting to have perhaps a bit of guidance on that. Yeah. So next
Probably
week.
you get
Also,
used to it and get a sense of what works best.
yeah, Uli, the other thing on what you just said there to me is always, yeah, A/B testing is always good. Try sort of both ways and see
Yeah.
what's happening. And I think it's one of the things I keep coming back to when I talk about nudges with people is try and actually turn it into something scientific. Try and understand what is it really specifically I'm trying to change. What is the intervention I've tried? Because sometimes people want to do a whole load of things at the same time, and then you don't kind of know, well, which of them actually work. So it's been quite scientific, and that's why I like, as you're kind of leaning to there, do an A/B test with different things,
Yeah.
and then you've actually separated out, and you can actually see which of those have worked.
Anybody else? If not, then I will hand over to Tim to explain more about pick and rule, and then we'll do a second activity after that.
Yeah, and after the second activity, everyone is going to share something. So get ready. Okay. So I want to speak about one specific nudge, which is based on one specific behavior, or one specific bias in our brains. And it's called the peak end rule. And I'm actually going to show us a little video which comes from this book. Anyone read the book? Heard of the book? Seen anything by Chip and Dan Heath? They've got sort of 4 or 5 quite popular books. Super recommend them. All the books are kind of marketing based, but also based on human behavior and just yeah, they're very readable. I don't know if they're worth the full $20 you pay for them, but they tend to have good tips in them. So this one you're getting for free in a way, because this is the most important part, is the little video. Go.
There's a puzzle about our memories of experiences. Let's call it the Disney paradox. And if you've been to one of the Disney theme parks, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If we were to sample your happiness level at, say, a couple of dozen different moments over the course of your park visit, my guess is that in a majority of those moments, you would actually be happier sitting on your couch at home. It's less humid there, less crowded. You can get a hot dog for less than $10. But as we reflect on our park visit, it might be one of the highlights of the year. Why is that? Well, psychologists know that our memories of our experiences are not really fair. You know, we don't just take an average of our moment-by-moment sensations when we reflect on our experiences. Rather, we remember snippets, scenes, moments. And in particular, there are two moments that we disproportionately remember. The peak of the experience, which is either the best or the worst moment, and the ending. So when we look back on Disney, we tend to remember the roller coaster moments, the sweet family moments, the surprises, but we don't recall that moment-to-moment sweatiness and irritability. Now, when we talk about creating better experiences for the people we care about, whether that's our customers, our patients, our students, or our kids, what this means is that we're really talking about creating better moments. Great experiences hinge on peak moments. But there's a problem, because we're not trained to build peak moments. We're trained to fix problems. We think that to create better experiences, we take a survey and we collect all the complaints and criticisms and we fix those things. But fixing problems doesn't make people happy. Fixing problems whelms people. Not overwhelms, not underwhelms, whelms. If you drive down a stretch of the road with no potholes at all, you're not ecstatic, you're whelmed. If your cable TV functions exactly as it's supposed to, you're not happy, you're whelmed. So if this is the reaction that we want from people, we need to start building peaks. Let me give you an example. There's a hotel in Los Angeles called the Magic Castle. You're seeing scenes of it here. It's not a lot to look at, is it? The amenities aren't that great. Would you be surprised if I told you this is the #2 rated hotel in Los Angeles based on thousands of reviews on TripAdvisor? How could that be true? There's a phone by the pool. It's cherry red. You pick up the handset, you hold it up to your ear. Someone answers and says, "Popsicle hotline, may I help you?" You can order up grape or cherry or orange popsicles delivered to you at poolside by someone on a silver tray wearing gloves like an English butler, all for free. There's a snack menu where you can get Cheetos and Cracker Jacks and cream soda, all for free, just for asking. There's a board game menu. There's a movie menu allowing you to check out things for free. There are magicians doing tricks in the lobby in the mornings. You could even drop off your laundry. They'll have it done, washed, and folded by the end of the day. And now you're starting to get a feel for how this unassuming place could be the #2 hotel in LA, just ahead of, you see that? The Four Seasons Beverly Hills. What this teaches us is something so important. Great service experiences are mostly forgettable and occasionally remarkable. People are willing to forget a lot of average, a lot of mediocrity, as long as there are some moments that are special. But those moments don't create themselves. And if we don't invest in those remarkable moments, look at what we're left with. If we want to improve the experiences people have, we've got to stop fixing potholes and start building peaks.
Make sense? I'm going to talk you through and show some more examples. I think it's really interesting as an idea, and I think that we can start to see it in our own lives and the things around us, you know. And again, it's, as he says on the video, it's based on the fact that our brains are not fair, they're not rational. There are certain things that we do remember more than others. Just quickly, it's not about not doing all the things to make sure people get a reasonable experience. You don't just stop doing all those other things, but if you don't build in that peak, then you're losing an opportunity to really grab people. So instead of east, we go epic. Elevation, pride, insight, connection. I'll go through them one by one, super quick. Elevation. Have any of you watched The Bear, the TV series? Vicky? Anyone else? A couple of you? Yep. Vicky, do you remember the story, Juliana? Do you remember the story of the family that went to Chicago and didn't have the pizza, and the guy who's in the picture here, who's like the maitre d' of the restaurant, he heard them, and so he rushed out to buy a pizza from the street, the famous Chicago pizza, took it back to the restaurant, and they created a special version of the pizza for the family. It was just this elevating moment, totally unexpected. And that is the basis of The Bear. That's the whole story. It comes from the series was written by the guy who wrote this book, Will Guidara, who was a restaurant owner who wanted to build into the experience that people would go to restaurants and they would get something they didn't expect. So you see in the series, they look at people's LinkedIn. They know when a family is coming and it's a special occasion, and they do all those things. And that's why you start to see, like, the first two series of The Bear are kind of hard work because everything's going wrong and they're all getting divorced and fighting. But then it all starts to work because they really understand that. And so I really kind of recommend that book. It's really interesting. But you can do it other ways. But it's all about, go off script, do something special, raise the stakes, create a special moment for people. The second element is pride. Help people realize when they've accomplished something, make them feel special, recognize them. The image here that's a nice one is at the top. I'm trying to think which university it is in the US, but if you get accepted on the course, you receive this special little package in a tube, and when you open it, all the confetti comes out. You got one from Hyper Island, yeah? Sabrina sent you yours when you got accepted on the behavioral design course. Yes? No? Sabrina, come on. Sorry. But it's like, it's that moment of celebration. It's making people realize that they've accomplished something can also be a peak moment around that. Helping people make a realization about themselves or their values is another great way of building a peak. Almost tripping over a truth about yourself as well. It could be through data. It could be about you've done well on the app. It is all those things, I guess, if you're using an app and it says, hey, you've done the streak of 30 days. But also a lot of brands do it differently. We put a couple of examples there's the Dove example, the Patagonia example, but it's all about making people realize that their behavior has actually done something good. And you can reward people around that. So that's that kind of giving people an insight about who they are and their behaviors is also a great way of building a peak moment into something. The last one, as always, the social element, the connection. Reward people in a way that creates a shared meaning. And it's about making that moment matter between people. I guess some of you might know this story. Has anyone actually ever got the free coffee from Pret a Manger? Do you know the story about Pret? That they have they've changed it slightly, but Pret a Manger, the coffee sandwich bar, when it started in England, they deliberately had zero marketing budget. What they would have given to a marketing budget, they gave to the people working in the store, so that if somebody came in the store and did something nice or good, or even started just a conversation, you could give them a free coffee. You could give them something. And it was just about creating that sense of social connection. So, someone holds the door open for other people. And that was it. You couldn't ask for it, but it was just the people that worked there had the power in a way to say, we're human and we're going to give you a free coffee. So I can see you all now going into Pret a Manger this week and being really nice and holding the door open for 10 minutes and hoping you get a free coffee. If it doesn't work, don't blame me. I know they've changed it slightly, but that's how it used to work. So peak moments, really fun. And I always, me and Sabrina joke about it sometimes. We're doing it with your kids, do it for your partner, think about for your weekend. Do you build a peak moment into your weekend? And sort of, you'll start to, I think, hopefully start to see how you can almost do it, meetings or all those things. So just to get you underway, you're going to do an activity. When you are in the Miro, you will see that each group will work on a specific scenario. Okay. You'll jump in, you'll see that there's a different scenario for each team to work on. And then what we would like you to do is have a quick discussion about what's the journey at the moment. What is the experience? How does it happen almost across, you can imagine it visually for a user or an employee. And then you can have a conversation. Where could we build a peak into that experience? And do a little bit of a brainstorm and start to think around it. And then you can start to decide on something that will be really nice. And we've put on the bottom of the board there the 4 elements of the EPIC frameworks, if you want to go back and look at that as a reference. And when you come back, we'd love to know, maybe you can just choose one of those peak moments and tell us a little bit about where you got to in your thinking about how that peak moment could look. Any questions? Get creative. Just really let your creative juices go on this. Think, money's not an issue. She didn't send the tube to you, so she's going to give you all the budget you want to do something fun for people.
Just one disclaimer, guys. There are 4 groups, okay? And there are 4 slides in the bottom, but it's not corresponding, okay? You should not limit yourself to one of them. It's just I've copy-pasted the slides in the bottom just for you to have a reminder of the different elements of EPIC, but it's not related, okay? So you can have a look to all of them.
Work across all 4, yeah.
All good? Let's go. So 12 minutes. I've mixed the groups again so that you are not with the same people. And you will discover your group number and therefore which scenario you get. Let's go.
And now Brian's disappeared. They're all disappearing because I said that I would like everyone to speak. That's it. Hi, everybody. This was fun for me, looking at your brain, your collective brain working and mapping and then deciding and then ideating. It's kind of fun when you just sit and watch and thinking, who's in that group? What are they doing? So I had my version, my story I was telling me about what you were doing, but could I just hear at least 2 of the groups? Like, could somebody just talk me through quickly, what was the challenge? And then where did your thoughts go? And if you did land on one, what was that peak moment going to be for your group? And I could quite easily do the thing where I close my eyes and just point at someone and say, "Oh, it's you. You're going to speak." I'd rather not do it. So if anyone would like to,
I can speak up.
Thank you, Stephanie.
We had the what was it called? Client receiving a first delivery or a service result, and we did a quick journey. We went for something virtual, or at least the process of buying it was virtual. So you went from selecting your service to buying it, to the confirmation, to waiting for the delivery, getting those status updates, and then delivery, and the option of customer feedback. And we had 2 peaks. So a smaller peak right before it's sent out for delivery, where you get a personalized message showing what's in your box and that it's been well packaged and that it's all set and ready to go. And then once it gets delivered, you get a handwritten card, maybe a perfume like on the card. The packaging can be dual purpose. You can use it for a cat castle or to help your kid become an astronaut and turn it into a rocket ship, or you can tear it up and have some seeds in it and you can put it in your garden and just plant it.
Definitely don't talk about cat castle things too loudly. My cats will hear it and then you'll create an expectation. Please. I love it. I love it. Great. The creative juices were going. That's awesome. I got something the other day actually where I did get a handwritten thing. It was really nice. It wasn't, I don't think it was the company. It was almost like the delivery person or actually probably the company did it, but it was so clever. It made it look as though it was the delivery person who did the delivery who'd written the note. And it was just, it just stood out, so I love that.
Yes, that was a cat.
That was okay.
That was a flying cat.
I'm not hallucinating cats now with cats and rockets and castles. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
That was a rocket cat. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we get another group just to give us a quick talk through?
I was in the same group, but I have something else to say. It was much more easy to get creative when you name a case in a more specific way, because making a first delivery depends on the product, depends on the brand, and we're getting more specific on what are you buying, like stuff for cats. You can get more creative.
Great, good reflection. Thanks, Brian. Yeah. Then you can actually really tailor it. And again, tailor it to exactly that specific element you're working, which also goes back to some of those other East factors as well. Then you know about what makes it timely and those kind of factors. Fantastic.
I can share as well. I was in group 3 and we had announcing a team promotion or milestone. And this is quite simple. At least we think it is. So from planning the event all the way to the peak where they get the bonus money, time off, or reward. And while we were working, we realized we can add some things in the process as well. So for example, like invite the team, and then we say make it unexpected, a surprise factor. But it turned out to be quite simple. I can see the other teams put in a lot of cards. Whereas here it didn't seem like there were many things that you can do to announce a team promotion. First, we didn't understand, like, is the whole team getting a promotion, or is the team celebrating that someone else is getting a promotion? So we just chose to roll with it. Everybody's getting
Good.
like 1,000 euros.
That's pretty good. Sabrina, next week, like, gets the most difficult one to work on. Okay.
No. No. Please, Sabrina, please. Let's be professional.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but I've seen recently something very interesting in terms of how to create a peak moment for promotion of an individual. It was a video that the company organized with the family of the person.
Yes. Yeah, I remember.
So, like, congratulating the person, and it was her mother, her sister, her husband, her kids, and this really created a peak moment. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I would cringe. I would cringe a lot if that happened to me. But okay.
And I think again on some of these, as with all of this course that we're seeing, there are cultural factors you should take into account. In Brazil, that would be amazing, and everyone will be crying. If you did that in certain parts of Europe, I can imagine it could be cringe and it could be like not going to work. So I think also just being culturally sensitive can also be a good point around that. Inga.
Yeah, I was in group 1, and actually I have a question. When we started discussing about creating the peak moments, and by the end we recognized that we found for elevation, insight, and connection always different elements, but we missed some for the pride element. And it felt, at least for me, that somehow all the other elements added up into the pride element.
Nice. Yeah.
Sounds that reasonable?
Yeah.
Or is that possible,
absolutely.
so to speak? That's the question.
Yeah. And again, I think depending on the context, some of those 4 factors are more easy to introduce or more relevant. But I really like that idea that absolutely you can build some of these can kind of come together. And the pride thing, especially if the group 1 was that the onboarding?
The onboarding.
Yeah. And I think again, it's almost, you hope for not for everyone, but you hope for most people, if you're starting a new job, then there should be an element of pride within there that you can sort of activate. But yeah, absolutely, if you can blend an
example,
Vicky.
Tim.
Yeah.
So my last company that I joined, I got slightly embarrassed because I'm British and I don't like people talking about me publicly. But every time I went into a new environment, and it was part of a project team, so I was a change manager for a big transformation, and every team we went into, the guy that was leading the transformation would introduce me for the first time, but with such pride in his intro that they were so excited, and but it was very genuine, and so that gave me a sense of pride, and I hid under the desk for the rest of the meeting. But
being very British,
the pride was created, I think.
No, but I love that example, Vicky. And again, it's almost it's like the thing about giving feedback publicly and openly, and it's kind of doing it again, that builds into the social factor. And so again, it's almost like where things are not, it's not like one in isolation. It's how you do that in a way that it's kind of this mixing of some of these different factors together. But I love that example.
the other thing I was thinking, just looking at this list and some of the conversation we had, is where it really becomes peak as opposed to kind of, yeah, thanks, that's extra, but do I really care? Is when it's like genuinely unexpected or different or unique. Because, like, for me, if I get flowers and candy on the desk, it's like, yeah, thanks. But not bothered. That's not doing it for me, like, because they just do that for everybody. They ordered the flowers or whatever. So something where they feel like there's, I mean, maybe that's playing in with the connection piece, but something that's somehow unique to you, or that it shows some understanding of you.
And I think that's such a good point of that's, going back to the book, that's something that they also say in the book. And that's why the E in there comes first. It is that thing about break the script. That's the biggest thing you can do almost is, and it goes back to everything we've spoken about today. It's habits. We're creatures of habit. Anything you can do to break the everyday routine or the monotony for people really does stand out. So it's almost all those other things that you do, or in some way, you need to be creating a different element to an experience for people to make it really be felt.
And perhaps coming back to the first module, there is also a super important element in behavioral design is how much empathy and connection you can have and apply to understand the people you want to change behaviors. Because again, something that can be a peak in some culture perhaps is not in another, or like perhaps flowers on the desk would work super well for some people, but not for you. So it's again, defining like on which population, on which audience I want to apply these nudges or these kind of things so that I can define what would be working and what not. Because again, in the HEAS, there are 4 letters. Okay, the objective is not to apply all of them for one behavior. It's perhaps defining what is the best thing that will make a difference. And for that, you need to know exactly to whom you are talking to, or like which behavior you want to change, which public, which audience. Super essential. And that takes time. So when we'll be perhaps discussing a little bit next week about in a project, in a company, how do you make a behavioral design project? This is the most important, part also in the beginning. If you don't go through that, the rest is a bit fake.
And Sabrina, just a little bit of a teaser into next week as well, because I know next week we're going to talk a little bit more about AI and the use of AI in nudging. And I think it's kind of obvious that the more we go into that AI-driven world, that sort of parasocial world where we have more experiences with non-human beings, the human connection part of it just becomes much more important in a way. That ability to connect at a human level, that really a deeper understanding of the human part of this is probably going to become even more important as we go into the future. Cool. Are we ready to wrap things up for today, Sabrina?
Yeah, let's go. So weekly challenge for the module 3 will be about applying the EAST framework to your case. So again, you've taken a case in the first week. I've seen that most of you have maintained it for the second challenge, the one on the ISM framework. You can keep it again now to apply the EAST. You can change if you want. You decide, okay? So we leave you like here, the first step would be, okay, analyze it through easy, attractive, social, and timely. And then create a peak moment in your user's journey. Okay, so I would leave, as always, a little canvas here so that you can apply the EAST here and then the peak moment. And again, you have 4 different columns here. Again, does not mean you need to find something of each of these elements for the project you are studying of changing a behavior, okay? It's a framework to help you get insights of which interventions you could do. It does not mean all of them apply in that specific case, okay? So don't stress wanting to fill each and every column here. Reflection journal, just like always, I will leave the questions here. I will put them into the Slack so that you can copy paste them and make your reflection. So we go for checkout. And it will be a cat checkout today because you've talked so much about cats. I thought this is the best checkout for today for sure. So, on the scale from 1 to 9, which cat best represents how you are living this session and why? The important is the why you've chosen this or that number of cats. So, Juliana, you put cat number 5. Why the number 5? A lot of infos. Let's go, guys. Choose your cat. 2 for Vasilina. Off to get some drinks. That's a perfect decision. I want to come. Stephanie, 1 because I'm still hungry. Yes, I will go for 1 and I will have lunch right after the session now. Light is number 4. Tell us why. Laurent is number 1, ready for dinner too. Tim is number 1 and 8, hungry, and because I will be with in a course with Sabrina later. Yeah, we change language, we change region, and then we change topic. Yeah. Inga, number 8, excited about the EPIC framework. Vicky also, 8, inspired by my group's creativity. Uli also is number 8, completely filled up, as always. Claudia is number 1, a lot of information to eat. Elena,
Sabrina,
number 8, lots of great
Sabrina,
information. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say just to everyone, it is a lot of information we're giving you in the sessions. Don't stress. And all the way through, we're telling you that that your brain is having all this information every day anyway, and we're just giving you more. So I just want to say, please don't stress. Like, go back into this material in your own time. Try and just create a bit of a space or dedicate some time, maybe at the weekend or whenever. But I think the most important thing is that you're here and enjoying it and feeling creative and interacting with each other, and then allow some of that other real kind of reflection and building on that to come with you. I'd hate to feel that you're here getting even more stressed.
Yeah, and also, some people have asked me in the Slack, I always post, the day following the session, the course page. This course page, I will be updating with the recordings, the decks, the learning kits, and this stays with you forever. Yeah. Okay, so don't stress if you don't manage to read the kits, and it stays with you. So if you want in the next weeks or in the next months to come back to try perhaps like 30 minutes every week, working a little bit on behavioral design, that's okay. That's fine. Okay. So I see 1, hungry, 5 and 9, ambivalent, or like 3 numbers, Brian. You are kind of like taking all of it, and Emin 8, because you'll make it all make sense next week. Yeah, everything will connect next week. But as always, we say, you have to practice. The more you practice, the more you understand which frameworks you like most, which framework makes sense in this or this situation, because accumulating content is not will develop your skills. Okay, so always think how I bring this to my life and how I start to apply this in my professional life, in my personal life. This is really what makes difference. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. We see each other next week for the last session with Vivi. And team, thanks so much for having done these 2 sessions with us. Any question, you can drop them on Slack. Okay? Have a good day still. Bye-bye, guys. See you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.